A man tried to stop God's ark from falling over. God killed him on the spot. A few hundred years later, a woman touched something she wasn't supposed to touch either. God healed her on the spot. And the weird part? On paper, they broke almost the exact same rule. Let's start with the man who died. His name is Uzzah. To understand why this matters, you need to know what the Ark of the Covenant actually was. It was a wooden box covered in gold. But it was not just a box. God's own presence rested on top of it. It held the stone tablets with the 10 Commandments. It was the most sacred object in all of Israel. For years, this ark sat in a regular house. Years before, Israel's enemies, the Philistines, had captured it in battle. But bad things kept happening to the Philistines wherever they put it, so they sent it back, and it ended up just sitting in one man's house for 20 years. Now, King David wants to bring it to Jerusalem. Big celebration, big deal, right? So they load the ark onto an ox cart. The oxen are pulling it along. At one point, the ground gets rough, the oxen stumble, and the ark starts to tip over. Uzzah is walking next to it. Without even thinking, he reaches out his hand to steady it, like catching a glass before it falls off a table. He's not cursing God, he's not stealing it, he's not disrespecting it on purpose. Bro just did not want a box to fall over. That's the whole crime. And God kills him on the spot. No warning, no hey, maybe don't, just dead before his hand even comes back down. The first time I read that, I thought, wait, that's it? Trying to catch something gets you killed? But stay with me, because here's the part most people never get told. God had already given Israel very clear instructions about this generations earlier. There's an actual written law in the book of Numbers, chapter 4. Only one family of priests, called the Kohathites, were even allowed to carry the ark, and they were told plainly, touch the holy things directly and you die. Not be careful, die.
And the ark was never supposed to go on a cart in the first place. It was supposed to be carried using long poles that slid through rings on its sides, lifted onto the shoulders of those specific priests, never touched with bare hands, never put on a wagon. David, the king who started this whole thing, skipped all of that. He copied the way the Philistines, Israel's enemies, used to move it, put God's presence on a cart like it's a couch he's hauling to a new apartment. So, when Uzzah reaches out his hand, he's not breaking some random rule nobody knew about. He's the last domino in a long chain of we will just do it our way that started with the king. Uzzah was not some random passerby. He had grown around the ark for years. This wasn't ignorance, it was familiarity turning into carelessness. Okay, but here's where the story flips on its head completely. A few hundred years later, there's a woman in a crowd. She's been bleeding, nonstop, for 12 years. This wasn't just an uncomfortable health problem. Under the law at that time, this kind of bleeding made her unclean. That meant she wasn't allowed to touch other people. She wasn't even allowed to be touched. Brush against someone by accident in that crowd, congrats, you just made them unclean too. 12 years of being the person everyone learns to quietly step around. She's probably spent everything she owns trying to get healed, and nothing worked. On this day, she pushes through that crowd and reaches out to touch the edge of Jesus' robe. Here's the detail that actually matters. It wasn't just his clothes in general. It was the tassels, the small fringes hanging off the corner of the robe that religious Jewish men wore back then. Those tassels were tied to an old promise in the book of Malachi about healing coming in his wings. So, she wasn't just grabbing fabric out of desperation, she was reaching for a promise she'd probably heard her whole life, finally believing it was standing right in front of her. No permission. No, excuse me, Rabbi. She just touches it. And Jesus doesn't strike her down. He turns around and calls her daughter, healed, instantly. So now look at what you actually have. Two people, both touch something they're not allowed to touch. Both do it without asking anybody first. One is dead before he hits the ground. One is called daughter and healed. And here's the part that took me way too long to actually get. It was never about the touching. Uzzah's hand was on the ark, but his heart and the hearts of everyone around him were somewhere else inside a system that had already decided God's instructions were optional. Her hand was on a tassel, but her heart was in exactly the right place, desperate, out of options, just believing that if she can reach him, something changes.
Landing it, same move, completely different thing happening underneath it. That's the actual lesson. And it's not watch what you touch, it's this. God isn't grading your hand, he's reading your heart through it. You can follow every religious rule on the outside and still be in the wrong with God, like Uzzah's whole family was. Or you can break almost every rule on paper out of pure desperation and real faith and walk away healed, like she did. One touch ended a life. One touch ended 12 years of suffering. Same God, basically the same act, completely different verdict, because there were two completely different hearts behind it. Uzzah never got the chance to ask himself what was really going on inside his own heart. You still can.